All right. Welcome everyone to the 2022 EVP Student Government Debates hosted by the Baylor Lariat. Let's go around and have all of the candidates briefly introduce themselves. First of all, I'm not running, but my name is Ava Dunwoody. I am the editor-in-chief of the Baylor Lariat, and I will be moderating this debate. Nick, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi Bears, my name is Nick Madincea. I'm a sophomore non-traditional student. I'm actually 24, which is why I look old and have wrinkles. Prior to coming to Baylor, I actually started a drone company, and then I came here 2 years ago now.
Whoever wants to go next.
I'll do it. Hi, my name is Jeha. I am a junior. I'm 21 years old. I'm from San Francisco, California. I'm a Sigma Chi, and I'm a finance major.
I'll go next. I'm Harrison Williams. I'm a junior electrical engineer with a minor in math and computer science, currently involved in student government on the external vice president's cabinet, and as well as the vice president of the Baylor Neighborhood Association.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shea Berthelot. I'm an incoming junior, so I'm a sophomore right now. I'm from North Dallas. My major is American Studies with a minor in International Studies. And I currently serve as the Director of Extra University Relations in the External Vice President's Cabinet. And I'm the Pre-Law Society PR Chair, as well as serving on a Senate as in my freshman year.
Awesome. Tell me why you decided to run for EVP. Let's start with Shea.
Of course. So I am running for EVP because I am confident that this is the best way that I can serve the Baylor community, just with my experience and how that has informed me and what I know about the position and what I can do going forward. Baylor has shaped my whole life. I'm a second generation Baylor Bear. So this has always felt like home to me. And so it's so important for me to give back to the community and make sure that I can help Waco and Bears everywhere have their voice heard and give people a platform to do that.
Clay?
Yeah, so I decided to run for EVP first off because I've been on student government for 3 years and I've seen a lot of the good that we can do. And I've also seen a lot of issues. And so I know that I have the ability to correct those issues in the best and most efficient way possible. And I truly believe and know that I can get that done and do it in a way that benefits all Baylor students, but not only Baylor students, the Waco community. I think one of the biggest things that matters the most to me is serving, whether it's serving each other or the Waco community. And so, if it's issues at Baylor or in the Waco community, I know that I can help and make both truly a better place.
Harrison?
Yeah, so my entire platform is based off of accessibility to Baylor and then the greater Waco community. I see a lot of students say, I have issues with OALA. They might not give me the proper accommodations. They don't give me enough, or just general infrastructure. And I'm running as EVP because I believe that through policy towards infrastructure and OALA accommodations, I can make Baylor as a campus, as a community, and the Waco greater population just more accessible in general.
Nick?
Yeah, ultimately, I really feel called to run for EVP because I think that we have a couple big problems around campus that I would love to fix. And as an EVP candidate, I'm actually running on 3 main platform points. The first one is to develop something called the Christian Action Bus. And the goal here is to reduce barriers to entry so we can go out and serve the Waco community. And that really came about from me seeing a big problem my first year at Baylor, which is it felt really hard to serve other people, and that shouldn't be the case. For me, coming from the Woodlands, Texas, just north of Houston, my home church was really great at saying, hey guys, just show up at 10 o'clock and we're gonna distribute school supplies to underprivileged families, or hey, we're gonna go out into inner city Houston and serve the poor. And I would love to see something like that at Baylor. So having served in Student Senate for 1 year, I started to see some issues that I think we could do a lot better. Baylor is so great at so many things, and we're really making progress in so many areas. However, I think the voice of a student who is an entrepreneur would be really valuable as a student body officer position. So that's why I decided to run. and really felt called by God to do it as well.
Awesome, thank you. The next question is, what have you done so far to impact Baylor's campus and or community? For this one, we'll start with Harrison.
Yeah. So my sophomore year here, I served on the Multicultural Engagement Office of the EVP's cabinet. We did a lot of brainstorming of on-campus events we could host. The biggest would have been Breaking Fast, which would have been like a large dinner we host with our Muslim students, where they can meet together after sundown, they can eat, and hopefully other students would have come and just gotten to know them, gotten a slice of their culture. But unfortunately, due to COVID and finals happening during Ramadan, that did not happen. And then this year, I worked alongside Zach DeFenction, our current EVP, on a tenant bill of rights, which would have been looking at amenities and services housing complexes offered, giving them like a sliding scale of awards or acknowledgements, and putting that out in some kind of newsletter to students on campus saying, hey, we know you're going to be looking for off-campus housing. Here are considerations. Once again, this did not go through. Baylor has their own system that got announced basically as we were about to be surveying complexes. But I think that's given me just a good look at what we can be doing from those two offices.
Awesome, thank you. Clay?
Yeah, so I have been on Finance Committee and Senate for the past 3 years. And in doing that, I have seen and connected with and worked with a lot of on-campus organizations of many different backgrounds, part of which, we distribute money to. And this year in particular, I served as our finance chair, and I'm currently serving as our finance chair, who essentially oversees that committee, does the administration work behind the SGAF. And my main initiative as the finance chair was to bring in new organizations who haven't received funding in the past. I tasked my committee to bring in 2 new organizations that hadn't been funded before. And actually this year, I believe we brought in over 8 organizations that hadn't been funded before. And so that's something that's really important to me. The role of finance chair works directly with these leaders of other organizations. And another thing in terms of the SGAF, me and our internal vice president headed the charge of getting more money for our SGAF. We actually got an increase of about $150,000, which will enable student government to help organizations, help the Waco community. And more importantly, we can now fund larger projects, fund larger events that will have a huge philanthropic impact. All of these events already do. And so another thing that we've done is made it so that the SGAF will roll over into future years, which is really huge, because that will allow us, instead of at the end of the year, us just kind of like, oh no, we have 5 days left, let's spend all of our money on some random project. We can now save that money that Baylor so graciously gives to us, and then use that in the prior year or in the future years for those same impacts and those same intentional uses that we want for funding philanthropic events and all that kind of thing. So
Thank you. Shea?
Absolutely. So this year I had the privilege of serving as a director for one of the 4 offices in the external vice president's cabinet. So I got to manage an office called Office of Extra University Relations. So you may have actually been able to, or you may have been able to notice the impact around the Waco community if you've noticed significantly more stop signs like the ones on 11th and Spate. And we've just got word that 10th and Bagby is going to be turned into a stop sign. We looked at individual intersections and crash data that basically tell how Waco students and people in Waco and our neighborhood community are not being served by how our transportation infrastructure looks. And so me and my office actually got in my little bitty Mini Cooper, and we rode around our entire jurisdiction, and we logged individual potholes, and we reported them to those to the city of Waco so they could get filled. Same with a lot of the different sight distance issues for stop signs. We're also currently working or trying to reach out to a lot of local businesses to expand the approved catering list to be more representative of the very diverse and wonderful community we have. And Baylor, I'm working directly with multicultural coalitions to do that, while collaborating with other different offices in the EVP's office. And so that's just a little bit. And then I was also able to sponsor a lot of different pieces of landmark legislation when I was a senator in my freshman year. So yeah, that's everything.
And then Nick.
Yeah, so I'm really proud of a couple things I've done at Baylor. One I would love to talk about is being the founder and president of the Startup and Innovation Club, which is our premier entrepreneurship club here at Baylor. As everyone has heard by now, we're now an R1 institution. And so as the founder of this club, it's been great to allow other entrepreneurs who are also students to come in and sell stuff to our student body. I'm proud to be part of the Dr. Pepper Hour for Entrepreneurs that took place about a month ago. And really just to be able to lift up our student entrepreneurs to achieve their dreams. And in the process of doing this, I've been really blessed to connect with several business owners here in the Waco community. And so many of them have amazing stories. And I think that if we just stay on this side of the highway, we're missing out on meeting some amazing people who are doing amazing things with amazing stories. One of those people who's really stuck out to me is Shamika Evans, who is the owner of Waffle Chick. You guys might have seen her big blue bus, or I should say food truck that's been on Fountain Mall. And just her story is amazing. And I would love to uplift entrepreneurs like her if I have the blessing of serving as your next external vice president.
Awesome, thank you. Our next question is, what do you think the role of student government is at Baylor, and what do you think it should be? For this one, we're going to start with Clay.
Yeah, so I mean, the role of student government really is to just advocate for the students who need a voice. I mean, every student on campus should have a voice. And it's really our role to seek out those students who don't have a voice and to speak for them, but also those students who do have a voice to hear them. I think that's really important. And that's essentially what student government is supposed to do. I think, to me, student government is something that really enables us to kind of be the connection between students and Baylor, in terms of advocating for things that students need and advocating for issues that students are having. There's, quite a few things that students have come to me and addressed to me that I've been able to do something about. That's what's really important to me. I think also student government, especially the EVP's role, is to maintain connections with on-campus organizations as well as the Waco community. And so it's a really specific role, and it's a really beautiful role because it allows the EVP to do on-campus things and off-campus things, right? Because we're not just students that go to Baylor and spend all of our time on Baylor. We also go out into the Waco community every single day, and that impacts us and that impacts our lives. And so it's not only advocating the students' needs to Baylor, but also to the Waco community and the Waco officials, and being able to get stuff done in that sense too. So,
Nick?
So I see the role of student government as two things. First, I see student government as a liaison between administration and the student body. At the beginning of this school year, we had 15,141 students in our undergraduate student body. Each of those students has a name and has a different story that's different from the other 15,000 students. And I believe that our role as student government is that we should act as a liaison between those students and the administration, and also act as an advocate. And this year, as a student senator, I was blessed to author a Senate resolution to have Veterans Day off. And I'm blessed to know many of our student veterans, and talking with them last fall, they felt like they were really left out and unseen and unheard, and also, quite frankly, unloved. So I feel really blessed that as a student senator, I was able to advocate for them to administration and say, hey, there's this group of students who have not only served our campus and our Christian values, but also have served our country, and they're not being seen or heard right now. So I'm honored that we could put our student government power into work there and really try to advocate for a more equitable campus and fight for a group that has been forgotten in our members of the student body. And I think specifically with the role of external vice president, I see that as a two-way street. The first is to go out into the Waco community and represent Baylor. and meet amazing entrepreneurs like my friend Shamika or John Passavant from Startup Waco, or Mayor Meek, the mayor of Waco, and really understand their stories and how they tie in with the Baylor community. And the second role of the external vice president is to bring those stories back on campus. You know, I think far too often we think about education as something that just takes place in the classroom. But really, education is the exchange of ideas. And I think about myself as an economics major. You know, it is one thing to learn about poverty in a classroom. It's another thing to go to the other side of the highway and meet someone who's living on $2 per day. And that's something I would love to use my initiative, the Christian Action Bus, to do, is to really get outside of the Baylor bubble, as it's called, and to meet other people and further our education by learning about their life experiences, their values, and what really makes them driven.
Shea?
Absolutely. So student government is an absolutely amazing organization. And I had the privilege of representing Baylor at the Big 12 conference earlier this year. And I know that every student has a voice and just needs a platform or someone to help lift them up to use it and a channel to go through. So through what I learned at the Big 12 conference, a lot of the other schools in the Big 12 actually have what's called constituency days. So that's easy access to your elected officials. So between Senate and SBOs, that's about 55 of us. So for a couple days, like each semester, what I propose is that we have a way for just a whole day set aside for our elected officials for easy access for people to come and tell us, because we only come at this from a very personal perspective, because we're only 55 people out of the 15,000 plus that Nick mentioned. So making campus work for everybody is so important. And right now, it's not a super transparent or easy process to get a hold of somebody and then make something happen. So working to create that bridge between students, student government, and also administration, as well as the Baylor, or as well as the Waco community, which gives us so much, is incredibly important. So using our platform to communicate, which is one of the deficiencies that student government has right now, is we are fantastic communicators, and we are able to be that liaison between, as Nick said, the administration and the students. But in Student Senate, it's absolutely wonderful, everything that everybody does, but if it's not something that we can allocate money to, it's usually something that has to be approved by the regents or the administration. So working to make those things happen and continue to advocate for that process. Passing a bill in Student Senate doesn't mean that it's going to come to fruition. So making sure that it's actually going to go through and continue at it with the administration and be able to give the student body an avenue with which to make more progress as a collective unit and as a team, rather than student government and everybody else. That's not how it's supposed to be. So we're here to represent you. So for everybody who's going to watch, I mean, you can DM any of us, but I especially would love to hear how any of the different things that you have going on in Baylor that you believe we can help with, and we can help point you in the right direction. So please reach out through anything, and we would love to hear from you.
Harrison?
Yeah. So I believe student government ultimately exists to represent the student body's needs, to the administration, allocating funds where needed, and organizing volunteers for reach out events. As far as volunteering goes, I think we're in a good spot. We've got a lot of events like Stepping Out, which is good. The Office of Community Relations currently tries to congregate and advertise at least one volunteering opportunity every Sunday. But as far as representation goes, I think we can do better. We had a restructuring bill that recently was struck down. I think we can put that back through. I think every major deserves a few seats at the table of our Senate. And I think, as Clay said, we're not just students that go to Baylor. We also live in the city of Waco. And as such, I think we should be serving them as well. Yeah, so I think the EVP's cabinet is absolutely equipped from experience this year, exactly like Shea said, with her extra university relations committee with infrastructure, I think we are perfectly equipped next year to extend accessibility on campus and the greater Waco area.
Thank you. Kind of going off of what, oh, yes, Shay.
Sorry, I just kind of wanted to respond to that, if that's okay. I don't know
Yeah,
exactly.
that's totally fine.
Okay, so I know Harrison touched a little bit on volunteering, and just as far as the Waco community, one of my main ideas that I'm running on, I have a lot. If you want to go check out my Instagram, they're pretty lengthy, but I think it's worth the read. As far as all the different initiatives I'd love to do. But as far as volunteering, making sure, because a lot of the students on campus don't have cars or the ability to get out into the Waco community or the time to be able to go and research all the different volunteer opportunities in the community. And those stepping out is absolutely fantastic, and nothing should be done about stepping out. It's fantastic. I think it's important for Waco students to know and be aware of the way that they can consistently volunteer in the community. So having something like a career fair, but instead as a volunteer fair by the EVP's cabinet reaching out to local volunteer organizations, organize something possibly on Fountain Mall so it's super accessible for all students and it's easy to stumble upon, so you can find something that you absolutely fall in love with and then be able to work with people and arrange a way to get there. So I do think volunteering on this campus and as a way to give back to the community, because we get so much from the community, it's important to have that option. So it's just incredibly important to do that. And then as far as infrastructure, like I said, we've been doing some work with that over the past year, and it's so important. And I know the student body president's office actually has like an office surrounded around accessibility. So that's going to be super amazing and fantastic. And infrastructure and transportation infrastructure is incredibly important, but it's not entirely in the external vice president's jurisdiction. So I did want to point that out, just as working directly under the EVP this year. I've had the privilege of being able to see like what we can help out and do, and anything as far as accessibility for disabled students on campus, I would be happy to help out with in any way, but I do know that that's not a direct jurisdiction that the EVP is able to work within.
Would anyone like to respond?
I would. I totally agree with what Jay said, especially in terms of the accessibility and that not being something that the EVP can directly do. I think in terms of service and volunteering, we all want that, and we all have that as part of our platforms. I think there are so many opportunities right now that are made available to students. It's just a matter of students not knowing. There's barriers of entry to volunteering, to getting out there in serving the Waco community and serving people in general. And so, you know, it's really important that with what we have right now, in terms of marketing these things and making these things known to students, we have, you know, our website, and we can email students, right? But we're not reaching a large portion of students. Students are still unaware of these opportunities that they have. So increasing these opportunities, which is to me really important, is not something that will be efficient unless students are aware that they have the ability to go out and do these things. And that's one of the biggest things that I think makes me and my platform unique, is that one of my main points is marketing. Collecting data, doing research, and understanding the student population, and then taking that and bringing it back to the students, using that to reach out to the student population, to educate them on the opportunities that they currently have that many students aren't taking advantage of. And the second part is to decrease the barriers of entry to volunteering. I think that's so important. And as somebody who's volunteered, I volunteered at the Humane Society, and part of the beginning process to that was extremely difficult. Having to go through a background check, fill out questionnaires, and you know, sometimes people get interviewed, and this whole process, especially that the city of Waco does have in place. It's an expensive process to these organizations. So it's difficult for students, and it's also difficult for these charitable organizations. For the Humane Society in specific, and this is just, I'm speaking from personal experience, is that every single time that they have to do a background check, it costs $50. And I know that part of becoming a Baylor student, you go through certain checks and to make sure that students are in good standing with the law and have good records. And so one of the main things that I want to do to decrease the barriers of entry is to kind of first make a Baylor approved list of volunteer opportunities in which students can go to the website, just click on a charitable organization that they'd like, and it will give them information about what the organization does. It'll guide the students in the best way possible of how to join and serve. And then back to the marketing point is, it's great if the EVP makes and creates more service opportunities and accessibility, bringing students to serve, which is really awesome. But if students are aware of it and don't know, then there's nothing that they can do. And so it's important to me to educate and make our students aware of the current opportunities that they have, but also to make it easier to join these opportunities and to serve the community. That's really important to me, and that's one of the biggest points of my platform.
Awesome, thank you. We're going to go to Nick, Harrison, and then Shea. Please try to keep your responses a little bit brief as we reach the halfway point of the debate.
So yeah, I think everyone's really right on the money with thinking about what it would take for us to go out into the community and volunteer. A couple points that were touched upon is, first, I completely agree with Shea that we need to really focus on consistently volunteering and not just showing up once and then leaving. And part of my initiative of the Christian Action Bus would be to learn how students can get integrated into the community around them. And like I said, not just show up to places like, say, the VA, CareNet, Mission Waco, Keep Waco Beautiful once, but really come there once a month or once a week and really focus on that. And I think Senator Jeha was also really astute with saying that there are some huge barriers to entry, and I think that when we think about what it takes for a student to volunteer, we have to do paperwork. There's oftentimes payment involved. There is transportation, there's gas money, there's signing up, there's water, food, things of that nature, there's skills. We have to look at what solution enables our Baylor Bears to get out into the community and serve others best. And that's how I came to the conclusion that the Christian Action Bus would be best. And I look forward to the privilege of hopefully applying my skills as an entrepreneur to make that become a reality, because there are a lot of moving parts to the Christian Action Bus. We need insurance, we need an actual bus, we need food, water, skills, people going out into the community and talking to stakeholders to see, hey, are you guys okay if we show up with 50 to 100 volunteers for a couple hours on a weeknight? And I think that's something of that nature requires a lot of entrepreneurial skill applied to government. And I feel like I have those skills. So thank you.
Harrison?
Yeah, so I completely agree with Clay about we need to definitely market these much better. Because like I said, we do have our Office of Community Relations advertising them, but we could be advertising them so much better. And then I just wanted to clarify, like, as far as infrastructure goes for my policies on accessibility, I think the extra university relations cabinet, like surveying and documenting to Waco, that was like my main hope, is that we can document these areas of struggle or difficulty, and similar to Waco, hopefully with enough documentation, they would be taking action, whether it be like sidewalks, maybe there's like a pole in the middle of the sidewalk, we should hit around that, something like that. Yeah.
And then I forget who was next, if it was Shea or Clay.
Shea.
Thanks. Okay, so I just wanted to do a couple quick responses to something or to a few things the other candidates said, like super quick. Okay, so Clay was talking about how like the list and the advertisement, similar to how a lot of the churches in the community are listed on Baylor's website, is how I interpreted his answer. And I believe I was talking with actually the director of community relations yesterday at our directors meeting. And we were just talking, if anybody has a chance to meet Marley, she's the absolute sweetest. I was just with her like an hour ago. but those are some of the things she's actually been like working on, I believe, as far as compiling a list. And so hopefully that's something that we'll be able to see in the future. And maybe Harrison can speak more to that at another time, just as because I know he's a member of the community relations office. So that might be something he could share more insight into. But also about the Christian Action Bus, which is fantastic. A bus is like really a good way to get out into the community. But I guess just a couple of questions I would raise with that is like, where is this money coming from? Where are the buses being kept? And is this exclusively for Christian use? Because as part of loving our neighbor and in the community, I think it's so important to include everybody. So whether it's Prism going out into the community and volunteering, or whether it is like a fraternity or a sorority, or anybody who would be able to use the bus. Like there are so many other organizations, and I just want to make sure that this would be an inclusive and also sustainable solution. Also like fiscally able to, because as a member of the EVP's cabinet and knowing that there is an executive budget, I am not aware of what the executive budget is. And I don't know anybody except for maybe the current SBOs who are aware of what the executive budget is. And we do have a big boost from the SGAF this year, the Student Government Allocation Fund. But I don't know whether or not that would be enough to cover even like the magnitude of buses, because I know my sorority, if we wanted to go volunteer at the Waco Family Abuse Center, which Alpha Chi Omega is able to support, we have over 300 sisters, and that won't be able to fit on a single bus. So those are just some of the questions I'd raise. Not that it's a bad idea. I just am concerned about the implementation of it.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. So Shea definitely raised some great questions there, and I'm really thankful for her thoughtfulness in this. I've looked into all the points she's raised, and so the way that the Christian Action Bus would work is that we would be able to rent buses, so we don't have to worry about storage, and we would subsidize them with the budget from the executive branch. So people aren't going to have to go pay to volunteer. We're going to be able to fund this all through student government, and namely through the executive branch. And no, it would not only be for Christians, but let's keep in mind that Jesus Christ was a servant before he was anything else. And we see him reaching out to people and wanting to serve them and understand them and washing their feet, literally. And so it is crafted in the image of Christ, but it is not just for Christians.
Thank you. All right, Clay, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer some questions because I do have knowledge, specifically in terms of budgets. In the executive budget, they have about $20,000, roughly $15,000 to spend in a full year, and a lot of that is from student government dues. And Baylor also provides around $5,000 to $10,000 every year in order for the executive branch to be able to fund certain things. And to be completely honest, I don't see funding a fleet of buses as something that is feasible with that amount of money, and also having to pay for other things. And if in doing that, by funding those buses, you completely would be taking away your opportunity to do other impactful things on campus. We've had mental health kits that have been funded not by the SGAF because it didn't pertain to the bylaws of the SGAF. So the executive branch saw it as something so worthwhile that they were able to fund that. And just those alone, if I can remember correctly, were around $5,000 to anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000. That's a significant portion of the executive branch budget that they took up to fund those. Renting buses is something that's extremely expensive, and not something that can be continuously done. It would have to be a one-time or two-time thing, just based on limitations of money, which is really difficult because it is truly a great idea, and it really does help students access the community by quite literally bringing them to service. I truly believe it's just not something feasible, which is disappointing.
Nick, you will have like 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, 30 seconds. I won't need it. I won't need all of it. Yeah, so I definitely really appreciate Senator Jeha's fiscal concern. It's certainly been a joy to serve with him on our Senate Finance Committee this year. $15,000 to $20,000 is more than enough to make the Christian Action Bus come to a reality. While it sounds like a really expensive endeavor to go out and rent one or several buses, it actually isn't, because we're only having them for a couple hours at a time. We're not owning them. We're not responsible for the insurance directly. We're really only responsible for getting our students onto and off of them. So it really would not be that expensive. And I've already priced it out. We could do it for less than $2,000 per bus per time. So it would really be quite affordable. And, Senator Jeha also mentioned the mental health kits and some of the other things that have been funded through the executive branch. The Christian Action Bus and mental health kits are not mutually exclusive. And in fact, most of the time, the executive branch budget goes unused. So these things are not mutually exclusive, and we could absolutely get this done. The money is there. It's just a matter of will.
Okay. Next question is, what are your thoughts on PRISM? Was this the right move? And how would your role influence the LGBTQ plus population on campus, if at all? For this one, we're going to start with Harrison.
Yeah, so EVP, as this higher up position, has a pretty unique, pretty strong voice in educating the student body and the greater Waco community. And I will do my best to support any needs of LGBTQ plus students, whether it be by voice, through StuGov resources, or materially, if possible. I think PRISM is definitely a very good first step in moving to affirm these students. Looking through the Lariat articles regarding PRISM and student opinions, I saw that there is an absence of affirming language in PRISM's constitution, and based off of what Lord Duncan is the president of PRISM, if I'm correct. Okay, I think so, but they very obviously seem affirming, very happy to be part of PRISM. And I'm happy to see that Gamma is willing to work alongside them. But as far as the Constitution going with affirming, I think that's simply just a matter of limitation on Baylor's part. I think PRISM existing as like an opportunity for conversation is very good. But I think Baylor could have done more, and they could have done more sooner.
Clay?
Yeah, so first off, I truly was happy to hear that we had an LGBTQ organization that just got chartered. I voted on the Gamma bill to pass it in Senate last year, and I strongly advocated for it. One of the main issues that has been consistent with an LGBTQ plus organization on campus is where it stands in terms of Christianity. And I'm a strong believer myself, and truly I believe above all, it's most important to love and serve others, right? It's our job as Christian to show the grace that we've been given to other people, and to show the love that we've been given to other people. And so another point also is Christians aren't supposed to judge non-believers. I can pull up verses if you'd like and show you that. And so regardless of believers or not either, it's judging others in a hateful way is something that absolutely is not supposed to be done. And so I think that welcoming a organization on campus such as PRISM shows our ability to give love and equality to that organization. I think it's really important that that was done. In terms of where I would act as EVP with this organization, I mean, it's quite literally the role of the EVP to reach out and be that bridge between organizations and student government. And so just as I would any other organization, I want to meet with them, hear what they have to say so that I, as the EVP, can advocate for them and their needs. I want to meet with every organization on campus, all 350 plus, in some capacity, whether it's with their leaders or with the organization itself, and be fully communicative with them. Let them know what my office is doing, what the Senate is doing, what the student body president is doing. And then after that, ask them questions on what they need. How can what we're doing benefit you? And what can we do on top of that will benefit you? And I want to do that for all organizations on campus. And I know that this organization is one that is going to be underrepresented. And so I will seek them out and hear what they have to say and hear their voices. another thing that I want to do is I want to bring them to get SGAF money. That's something that I have, tasked my committee with, of bringing in new organizations. They are a new organization, and I see it them being perfect to fit and bring into the to get student government funding, if possible this year. If not, I would reach out to them next year and just let them know as soon as possible, so that they can have an event, have some sort of philanthropic impact on campus, which will be really significant and helpful to their organization.
Nick?
Yeah, no student at Baylor University should ever feel like they're forgotten about, and no student should ever feel like they're not cared about. So I'm happy that PRISM was chartered, so that way we can pull up a chair to the table and have these students know how much they're loved and cared for. I think that as a university, we also need to focus on our Christian values as well. So I think that we need to care for others and love them while also upholding Christian truth. And in the process of charting PRISM, I was sad to see several other groups on campus neglected, namely our student veterans. So I think that as we're engaging in conversations about groups that have been overlooked and forgotten, we can't forget about others like our veterans and non-traditional students and people who are older as well, like myself, in the context of this conversation. So again, I think no student should ever feel like they're not loved. And whatever we can do to love our brothers and sisters in PRISM, we should absolutely do.
Thank you. And Shea?
Hi. Okay, so I was overjoyed to see that PRISM was officially chartered just the other day. I was actually fortunate enough to be one of the sponsors for the bill No Crying on Sundays, which was to promote the charter of Gamma Alpha Epsilon. I am very blessed to have, I believe, the new secretary of PRISM on my campaign team, who's also running for Senate, William Alvario. Absolutely wonderful guy. I am so excited to see what he does in PRISM. And then it's also going to be absolutely amazing, because one of the things I want to do is, like, I'm not using my platform to give a voice to people who don't have one. I recognize that all people have voices. My logo is literally a megaphone. So hopefully I am just like the vessel people are able to use in order to get their own personal voices out there. So in my cabinet, I am like pledging right now, and like hold me to this, if I were to be elected, I would like to have many LGBTQIA individuals or plus individuals represented in my cabinet and in leadership, because it's so important that everybody is able to have access to the administration. And this is a group that's going to need so much to be heard as we continue the progress that Baylor has started. And this is a fantastic first step. And I'm here to support both Gamma and PRISM in any capacity. And I am just really excited. And like, as far as like the greatest of these is love. Jesus said, we love everyone, we love our neighbor. And that is the greatest commandment, or like one of the two greatest commandments. Like, I can pull up the passage if you want, but it's absolutely so important to make sure we're lifting up others. So I feel like, like there's a saying, it's like when you're climbing up the ladder, you have to make sure to help the person next to you up. So that's what I'm hoping to do. And this is a group that's going to need a lot of love and support going into the next year, because this is, unfortunately, it is divisive and it is new, but being able to be there for that group, though I don't personally identify as part of the LGBTQIA plus community, it's important for me to be an ally and help everybody make sure that they are being respected and loved the same as any other person on this campus. So that's all I have to say about it.
Our next question. What are your plans to address issues of racism and or diversity on campus? And for this one, we'll start with, Clay, go ahead. You are muted.
Apologies, sorry. This is one question that when I saw, it really kind of stuck out to me. Personally, I cannot speak for racism on campus and what I've seen. I haven't experienced it. I'm just going to be upfront. I haven't experienced it. And to be honest, I really haven't seen much of it. And I'm not saying that it does not exist. I know that it does exist on campus. And so truly what I want to do is to reach out and find people who have experienced racism and hear what they have to say, hear what impacts they can make, because I can't stand up here right now and tell you what to do in terms of this without having ever experienced it or known it. And so I think the best thing and the best way to truly address it is to reach out to those who have, see and just collect more information and together find a solution. I think that's the best and most efficient way to do it without having any sort of experience with it. And also another way is just by seeing it, if it's seen, to just denounce it. Baylor's Christian commitment and values state to love all, right? Regardless of any background. It's truly to love all, because we are all brothers and sisters at the end of the day. And so really just if you see something, say something, but also to reach out to people who have experienced it, to hear their experiences and to see what actions are best, because I myself cannot stand up here and come up with some solution without ever having experienced it.
Shea?
Absolutely. So, of course, also with Clay, I have never experienced racism, nor will I ever. And just from what I have observed, I know that especially MPHC and UGC communities are really underrepresented in also who gets the SGAF money. So I think it's so important that we equitably advertise that money, because I think it's more about an issue of information and the dissemination of that, and the representation in Senate. So working to make sure that is well advertised, and that members of multicultural coalitions are consulted frequently in my cabinet, and people and BIPOC members being a prominent part of my cabinet, because I want to fill my cabinet with people who don't look like me, and that's so important. And we were like last year, through the university's reports, we were able to look at, and I had the opportunity to ask President Livingstone directly some questions about her plans, or like the committee's plans for the university going forward to address the racism that we've seen, or not that we've seen, but like in the past, from the founding of our university forward, and just continuing to like not shy away from that issue and confront issues, and also give people a platform in order to lift others up and make sure that everything that should be called out is called out, and taking steps to remedy that. So I believe that answers the question.
I'm going to have Harrison and Nick share first, and then we'll get to responses, Clay. Let's see, Nick.
Yeah, I believe that incidents of racism should not be tolerated at Baylor University. If someone is found guilty of any form of racism, I believe that they should be offered the ability to confess and repent. And if not, I don't believe that they belong here. Few things trouble my heart as much as the egregious injustices of our past. And I've been deeply troubled by some of the things that we've seen over the last couple of years here. But I'm hopeful that we're working towards a better future. I'm excited by what the administration is doing there. I'm also blessed to have a relationship with an amazing chaplain in the Department of Multicultural Affairs, and that would be my girlfriend. And I've learned a lot about her I've learned a lot from dating her about diversity, equity, and inclusion, namely because, she is from the most underrepresented demographic here at Baylor University, and that would be Native Americans. I think that on issues of racism and diversity, it's really important to listen to each other and to be humble and to understand that there are things we don't know and experiences that we don't have. And I look forward to doing that as a candidate for external vice president, and hopefully your external vice president, so we can build a better Baylor for everybody and a more equitable university.
Thank you. Harrison?
Yeah, so exactly like everyone else said. Obviously, I hate seeing or even hearing instances on campus of racism. Thinking about last year at Moody in the garden level with the security guard, and his terrible statements to those Black students on campus. And thinking about the sit-in that we had, seeing the faculty there, I thought was amazing. And then to the next day to just see like a Bible verse as an acknowledgement, no other statement from Linda Livingstone was frustrating to say the least. And I think that faculty and student government should, at the very least, like speak up more about these instances. I think Clay was absolutely right. We should be reaching out to these communities affected. Obviously, I'm also very white. I've not experienced any instances of racism, but I am, ethnically Jewish. I see representations of Jewish people in media that are just egregious and terrible. And if that frustrates me and angers me and saddens me to any degree, I can only imagine just how bad that would be for someone actively experiencing that on campus. And I think amplifying the voices of those affected here on campus is really all we should be doing, and then taking from their experiences what they would like to see on campus in policy.
Thank you. And let's keep our responses to like 30 seconds. Clay, did you put it down?
Yeah, no, I was putting it down because so just to kind of in terms of inequalities that we've seen, somebody mentioned the NPHC, and recently, this is in a way happy news, but also slightly saddening. Recently student government just passed a Senate improvement to renovate and to help restore the NPHC garden on campus. It has been neglected significantly for quite a while. And we were able to fund that for around $56,000, which is one of the largest campus improvements that I have seen. So that's happy news. But also in terms of inequalities, in 2010, 2012, sororities got the Panhellenic building, and NPHC got a garden and at the same time. And I mean, if that doesn't scream inequality, I don't know what does. One of the main issues that came up in seeing it during Senate was, is there a way that we can fund a building with the money that we have? Is there something that we can do? And understanding the value of that garden to NPHC is important. That it holds a lot of significance, and those stones that they have there mean a lot. And so we wouldn't want to take that space away from them, but we want to give more so that we can truly have equality and completely I'm speaking out now against that inequality. I want to, as EVP, advocate more for that and speak up more for that to make sure that Baylor is being fair to all students.
And Shea?
Of course. So I just wanted to bring up a couple things, and I know Nick brought up his wonderful girlfriend. I know we got to be involved on starting to work on a project together. I was inspired by some of the Big 12 schools who have land recognitions in the beginnings of their Senate meetings they're not all Senate meetings, but basically at the beginning of their meetings every week to recognize the land that they are on. And Waco was actually named for the Waco Indians who used to inhabit this part of Texas. So we were working on looking forward to help lift up and empower the Native American community that lives on campus, which is such an exciting opportunity. So looking forward to that. It was kind of sidelined a little bit by restructuring and just kind of like the breaks we had in school, but I'm looking forward to hopefully picking that up again and continuing on with that. And then I know I was having a conversation with Clay the other day about this issue regarding the underrepresentedness of NPHCs in UGC, and it's so important that we make them feel as like loved and valued. And as a member of a sorority, or as a member of the Panhellenic Council sororities, we do have our own building, which was financed by all the sororities, but it's unacceptable that like organizations like UGC and NPHC do not have a place to meet. And I know that concern was raised, I believe, in a student government meeting earlier this year. So it's just so important to continue to renovate and help the garden like back to its beauty before the freeze last year. And continue to lift up the community and hopefully start a push to get these communities buildings, or even like I think it would be really cool if Panhellenic, like this isn't just an idea I haven't like talked about it to anybody, but if Panhellenic was even able to like have like a joint like sharing of rooms with MPHCs, like having, because like we have our meetings and we have events, and just letting MPHCs, because there are 9 sororities and I believe there are 9 MPHCs, being able to like take turns. And I know I'm by no means in charge of my sorority, but being able to like be that voice and allow like that co-use of a space, like a specific space, will be like just a fantastic step in the right direction. So that like that's just an idea, and that's definitely like a bigger than me problem to go forward. And it's by no means a promise, but it is something like it is an idea to move forward and help. So hopefully we can be able to work with MPHC and UGC in the future to help give them the building that they deserve.
Thank you. And then Nick, did you have your hand raised?
I'm good. I know we're short on time as well. So.
Okay. So our second to last question that we're going to do, I know EVP has a big role in the Waco community. So how will you help the Baylor community more positively impact the Waco community? Nick, we can go ahead and get started with you.
Yeah, so I've talked a lot about the Christian Action Bus and how that would enable our Baylor Bears to get out into the community and serve. One other thing I also am really passionate about is I'm running on 3 platform points. The second one is I want to start an airport shuttle that would take our Bears from Waco to the Dallas-Fort Worth airports to get them there safely and affordably. And this would be a completely self-sustaining, basically large taxi bus that would take them there. And I think in terms of the Waco community, it's really important that we get out there and we serve, and we don't just serve for our own selfish purposes, but also serve to learn about others and really care about them well. And I think that, talking about sort of the injustices of our past, it would be great to change our hearts and mind around this issue by learning about how that has affected somebody in the Waco community.
Thank you. Harrison?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, like documenting infrastructure, sending that to Waco. I think that plays a big part in like accessibility to just the greater Waco community, but also with construction, navigating around, especially on foot, around certain intersections, even under the highway, is precarious, sometimes difficult. I think the city of Waco should be working on, at least routing out, having very clear markers for pedestrians to be walking, making silence a little clearer. I know the stop signs at Leaveview Parks, crossing the highway, it's a little precarious for students to be crossing there, especially with construction workers. I think just helping with visibility of routes in these construction areas would be good. Yeah.
Shea.
All right, so one of the big projects I hope to be working on next year that I'm like personally super passionate about, and I've done a lot of research in the past, and I'm hoping to look into it as far as a career, into voting information and just accessibility is super important to me, and just voting rights. Like, I don't know if you can see, but I have a bracelet that says vote. I've got a necklace that says vote. We've made our point, but what I'm really hopeful to do, college students are just so easily disenfranchised. And with the 2022 midterms coming up, it's so important, and especially for freshmen or for people who haven't like switched their registration. There's so much information, and it's kind of a difficult process to figure out, how to switch your registration to the right county, how to like the deadlines for mail-in ballots, or when to register for vote or to vote, and the accessibility of how to get to the polls. So these are all things that I want to work on, and especially the fall semester if I were elected, just to make sure that everybody has the information. So like tabling on Fountain Mall, like if I need to drive people to the polls in my car back and forth all day, I will. If I can't get any kind of transportation, I will drive my car all day back and forth for people, because it's that important to me that students, because this is like, we're voting in and if we're voting in Waco, like it's so important because we're also like needing to get out into the community. And so this is helping to give back to the community. So not only is it a Baylor issue, it's a Waco issue. And college students are historically underrepresented in voting from like 18 to 25. So it's so important that like when we are such an important and large demographic of the nation, and with all the information and with all like the tools at our disposal, I think it's absolutely fantastic if we would be able to get out the vote for all those who are able to vote. So giving people the opportunity and the information so easily, it will make it almost like hard to ignore. So yeah, that's one of the big initiatives that I'm really excited for if I were to be elected.
Thank you. And then we'll go to Clay, and then you can respond to Nick.
Yeah. So, I mean, main point in terms of Baylor students is serving, and we've talked a lot about that today. That's been a large topic, and I think that still is really important in terms of connecting students and to service in the Waco community. It's significantly important, and especially making students aware of the options and the availability that they have to serve already, and also making it easier for them to do that, right? And marketing that to them is really important. But also there's a second aspect that's really important, that is just in terms of the EVP's role is to work with the Waco government, right? Waco government officials have meetings and to advocate for students' needs. And one of the largest points of my platform is to create a sustainable relationship with Waco government officials. Our current EVP, Zach DeFanction, has done a really good job. When he and I met and talked, he had told me that there hadn't been an EVP that had met with a Waco official in quite a while. And that's just something that should be done. And there should be, for future EVPs, but not only EVPs, just students in general, a way for them to go and speak their voices, right? And if whether that's through me, you know, if I get elected at the EVP capacity, or if it's, you know, me sharing emails, and I think it's really important that it's marketed to students also, and students are educated on what the Waco government is doing. Because like I said earlier, yes, we are Baylor students, but we're also members of the Waco community, right? The Waco government serves us as well. And so it's important. So we can serve Waco, but the Waco government, it's their job to serve us. And so it's important for students to be educated on what's happening in the Waco community, what the Waco government is working on. And then even further, if, you know, students have issues, it's the EVP's role specifically to then reach out to Waco government officials and express those concerns. And so I really just want to find a way for future EVPs, but as well as the current EVP, to maintain a sustainable relationship with the Waco government, and to make it so that it's hey, how can the Baylor students serve you? And then here's how you can serve us.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, something I've learned as a leader is that it's very important to focus on issues that matter to you and to the people you plan to serve. And let me say that I really appreciate Shea's heart and wanting to fight for more voter accessibility. However, I do disagree with her that I don't see that as a serious issue facing our student body right now. You know, right now there's nothing to stop our students from going out and voting in the community. I know that a couple of people from student government have had conversations about moving a polling location here on campus. And in order to do that, we'd actually have to shut down one in the community, and that would just be wrong. I think that for me as well, part of why I focused on the issues that I am, the top 3 issues, is that we really have to focus on what are the issues facing our student body. And that's why I'd want to pour more resources into an airport shuttle to make sure that our bearers get safely and affordably to and from the airports, and really just are safe. So
Clay?
Respond to that, actually.
Oh, actually, yeah, you can, because he addressed it.
Okay, yeah, of course. So voting is an issue for everyone, because as like a majority of our population are citizens of the United States, and and a lot of us are like, we are citizens of Waco. And it's important that we have the civic duty to go out and vote if we are able. And so this is a Baylor problem. And not only is it a Baylor problem, it's a state problem and it's a national problem. And it's a problem for 18 to 25-year-olds. So that's why I'm so passionate about this. And people deserve to have their voices heard and to be able to like participate in our local elections. And it's kind of frustrating to hear that it's not a concern, because like it's just like I don't know. I'm a little flustered. I just, this is something that's important, this is stuff that people fight and die for. So it is important to make sure that like this information, and it's just dissemination of information. It's not like and getting people to the polls. If people don't want to vote, they don't have to vote. But it's important to me, and working on what you're passionate about. Like that's not the only thing I'm running on. And in fact, I know Clay was talking about sustainable relationships with the Waco community and Waco officials. I was in early meetings about the My Waco app. I've spoken and communicated with Waco officials. And I think it would be a really good and easy transition from me, who's already been in meetings, to go to just continue that basically, and continue that relationship and continue to grow that relationship. And so I think that would be really sustainable, and continuing to do that would be really important. And so, and like, if it's the EVP's job to communicate with local officials, it's also the EVP's job, like it's kind of a little bit of a lobbying position. And I have mock lobbying experience, and that's something I want to do as a career for like civil rights lobbying and things like that. So it's so important to like engage with not only our local community of Baylor, but our city, our county, our state, and our country. So not prioritizing that, especially during an election year, is frustrating to say the least.
Let me respond to that. Okay. So I think I completely agree with Shea here that voting is very important, and I completely agree with her as well that everyone should have a voice. However, I think where we disagree is whether or not this is there are major barriers to entry to voting right now, and I just don't see that in our student body, so I don't believe that resources should be put towards that. However, I do really appreciate her heart behind this. I completely agree with her that everyone's voice should be heard.
Thank you. All right, Clay, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I kind of want to change the direction of in terms of voting and accessibility to that, to more of once again buses. I think that once I raise concerns of funding again, it especially something that if it's something that's consistent has to be done continuously. We run into the issue of having to pay employees insurance, and honestly just finding a way for Baylor to fund this, it once again doesn't seem feasible. I'm currently looking at a Lariat article here that was written in September of 2021, where it's students have trouble getting to campus due to bus cancellation. Baylor canceled the buses from across LaSalle, places like Ursa, Outpost, Oso. I lived at Oso last year, and finding out that the buses were I took those buses every day to get to campus. If Baylor isn't willing to pay for students to get to campus, I find it hard to believe that it would be, one, possible to fund, and two, something that Baylor would be willing to pay for in terms of bringing students to the airport when there is already a source, a bus to get there. It just happens to be expensive.
Nick, would you like to respond?
Yes. So Senator Jeha is very correct that there were some issues with the Baylor bus system earlier this year. I had the privilege of being a Welcome Week leader for some wonderful students from Cityside, and they actually had an issue or several issues there with the bus being late or not showing up at all. However, it's really important to note that that bus is actually owned by the city of Waco, but is subcontracted by Baylor University. And both of my main two proposals with the Christian Action Bus and the airport shuttle, first off, both of these things are completely financially self-sustaining. And second is neither one of them would be subcontracted by the city, or excuse me, through the city. So it's really important to note that, and to note that it would be a completely different quality of bus, and that it would get done, it would be high quality, it would be on time, and it would be safe.
Okay.
I just kind of want to respond to Nick's earlier comments. I've studied voting information, and voting rights extensively. In my junior year of high school, I was mentored by a senior voting rights attorney, and I profiled every single presidential candidate like pre-primary. So that was like upwards of 30 candidates and multiple political parties. And I've done research on like the demographic and the area and how college, I'm thinking about writing my honors thesis on the disenfranchisement of college students. So this is a huge deal, and midterms are historically unrepresented in people who get out to make their voice heard. So it's just kind of disheartening to hear that it's not, like, I guess not regarded very highly, because it's going to be a prevalent issue and you're going to hear about it next year. And this is like going to be the best year to do this, because it is like before pre 2024. So it's just so important that we like do. I don't know how to say this any differently. Like, I have, as someone who has done the research and like put time, over hundreds of hours of research into this, and will continue to do so. It's just kind of frustrating, and I just want to impart how important of an issue this is. And it's not the only thing I'm running on. I have lists, and as someone who is like working with accessibility and like trying to get people places, I feel like this is something we should more agree on rather than disagree. But I don't know. I'll just let it stop there.
Nick, a response?
Yeah, I'll respond to that very quickly. So I completely agree that, people should absolutely have a voice. I don't refute that at all. I completely disagree with Shea there, and I really appreciate her heart and caring so much about this issue. I think looking at it as disenfranchisement, I think, is a misframing and inaccurate framing of the question at hand. I think a better question to ask is, how do we get more people to care about their local government? And I think that as external vice president, I would really seek to build bridges there rather than build barriers, because I think that once people meet people like, Mayor Meek or our city councilwoman or our county commissioner or county judge or any judge here, or county sheriff or chief Victorian of the Waco Police Department, all people I am blessed and privileged to know, they'll care a lot more about government. And I say this as someone who wants to go into government and obviously a student government candidate right now. Is I think people, generally speaking, you just don't care enough about government because they don't know people in government, and government isn't serving them well enough. And if I'm elected external vice president, I look forward to hopefully having the privilege of serving the student body the best I can and getting them more interested in our local government here in Waco, Texas.
All right, we're going to do Shea and then Clay, 30 seconds each, and then we'll move on to closing statements. So, Shea.
All right. So just as far as it's just an information issue, honestly. And I would encourage everybody out there who's watching this to look up who spoke with and profiled, I believe it was 6 or 7 city council candidates in districts 1, 3, and 4. In my freshman fall, I wrote and interviewed all of those, and I wrote I think it was District 3 results. I was in the newsroom on election night. Like, this is stuff that I care about, and these are relationships, like, I've spoken with these people before, and I look forward to continue speaking with the local officials of Waco going forward if elected external vice president. And it is an issue about caring, and it's also an issue of, like, college students are busy people. So when you put a table out with important information about voting, people are more likely going to do it because it will also be in the forefront of their mind. So that's just what I'll leave everybody with. But that's just my 2 cents on the matter.
Clay?
Yeah, so I think just kind of both sides addressed here. Regardless in terms of voting, I think it's important that students are made aware and educated. And I don't think that can be done unless there's proper outreach to these students. And so in terms of marketing, I think that, back to one of my largest campaign points is marketing to students and reaching out to students who have no connection or ties to student government, right? To make them aware and understand the opportunities that they have that are out there for them. And so I just think it's important to educate and to market and to outreach to students in terms of voting and just the Waco community and government in general.
Thank you. All right, so for closing statements, I'm going to give each of you about 45 seconds to just say anything you feel like you haven't said, anything you want to say, and then also include how students can reach out to you, where you're available, where more information about your campaign is accessible, any of that information. Let's start with Harrison.
So I believe that, well, I don't really have any more policies to discuss, but I'll close with, I think I'm the most experienced, at least in the external vice president's cabinet, just serving on 2 committees for these 2 years. Shea definitely has had so much more experience in leadership than I have myself. And I think her work has been amazing. But in my position, I think serving on 2 cabinets and having been able to see what other offices have been able to accomplish alongside us, I believe has given me the widest viewpoint for our future with me as EVP next year. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm available at the Instagram handle, Happier with Harrison. You can DM me literally anything, any ideas, any concerns, any questions. I'm always open to criticism because without my constituents, I would not have a place here, and I serve to represent you. Thank you.
Thank you. Shea?
Hi, everyone. I truly believe that I am the best and most qualified candidate for this job. And though my competitors are incredible people, wonderful people, and doing their fantastic job in student government, I think that my experience both in legislative and executive branch is going to be a fantastic way to bridge the gap between those two. And then just with my inner workings and meetings with the other cabinet members and my experience with the Big 12 conference that the EVP has a large part in planning and taking part in, I think that my experience would be the most helpful to the student body going forward with this. I am passionate about a lot of things, and I'm confident it is within my jurisdiction to do all of these things. And so there's a lot of time and things move slow. So I'm not going to promise that I'll get everything done that I have listed on my Instagram, which is Shea at Shea EVP for all with the number 4 instead of FOR. And then my personal Instagram, sincerely.shea. I also have several very large QR codes set up around campus and a lot of small ones. So feel free to scan. It'll take you to my website, which has more detailed information about my platform and my experience. I'm just excited to have this opportunity to help y'all, to help lift everybody up. I've talked a lot about my biggest policies, so I'll leave it there on that one because I feel like we've heard a lot about voting today. But one more thing on that: do vote April 26th and 27th for have a say and vote for Shea, EVP for all. Thank you.
Clay?
Yeah. So I really think that, my 3 years in student government, serving as on finance committee and as finance chair, I have worked with organizations on campus, it's one of the main roles of the EVP is to bridge the gap between student organizations and student government. And so having already built connections and relationships with a lot of the organizations that have come to student government is really important and will be really beneficial. But also it's important to me that we reach out to those who don't know and aren't aware of student government and the impacts that student government in the ways that we can serve organizations. And so, I want to meet with all 350 plus organizations on campus at some capacity. And second is, helping serve the community, bridging the gap between the Waco community and the Baylor community, because essentially Baylor students are part of the Waco community. And so it's important that we care for each other in our community. And then creating service opportunities and that list that I talked about, not just making a list, but also making that list something that makes it easy, right? Reducing, the making the ease of access much greater, so students can come and just click on a link and go and serve that next day, because there should be no limitations on how students should serve. And then the last one, which is really huge and significant to me, is marketing. This has been a huge point throughout this debate. We've talked about all these really great things, and it will do no good. We can do all that we can, but it will do no good if students don't know, right? We need to educate our students and make them aware of what we're doing, and bring them into student government, encourage them to come join us, to come speak their voices, because all students do have a voice. They just need to be heard, right? And so it's really important to me to hear students, to address their needs, and do it in the most efficient and effective way possible. To reach out to me, my Instagram is Clay Jeha. You can DM me and let me know what questions, comments, concerns you may have. I promise that I will work as hard as I possibly can to get as much as I possibly can done. I understand that it's difficult sometimes to work with Baylor. I've been told no many a times on dreams that I've had in terms of making Baylor a better place, and same with the Waco community too. But that doesn't mean that I stop trying. I will give it my all, my 100%, all of my dedication to this role, to serve students, to hear their voices, and to truly make Baylor a better place. And so I ask that on voting days, you go further with Clay.
Thank you. Nick?
First off, Ava, thank you so much to you and the Lariat for hosting this debate. My friends and fellow Baylor Bears, you have 4 wonderful people in front of you running to be external vice president. And let me say that I deeply admire Clay and Shea and Harrison for all of the wonderful things that they've done on this campus. I think that in this election, it's important to ask ourselves, what are the biggest issues that we face on a day-to-day basis? And as an external vice president candidate, I am running on 3 big priorities. The first one is the Christian Action Bus. That would be a way that we can go and serve the Waco community with no hassle, no large obligations, just show up outside of Patnef at 5 o'clock, and we're gonna go serve around the Waco community at places where our help is desperately needed for a couple hours. The second initiative that is my top 3 priorities is a airport shuttle take us from campus to the Dallas-Fort Worth airports safely and affordably, so that way we can get home to go see our families in a way that doesn't present a large burden. And the third one, which I haven't had the privilege of talking about tonight, is mental health crisis training. So that way we can be there for our brothers and sisters in Christ when they need us the most. I got to these 3 priorities because these are all 3 issues I faced on campus. First is when I got here as a freshman last year, I didn't have a good way to go serve the community. And I feel like there was a lot of barriers there. I actually filled out an application to go serve at Mission Waco. However, it required $7 in cash, and for me to present the paper application to them in their office. And I'll be honest, I still haven't given them that application, because I know that requires me going to the other side of the highway and going to the bank and getting $7 in cash, which is an oddly sized number, and I only use credit cards. So I think that this would be a great way for us to reduce barriers to entry there. The way I got to my second priority was last year I had to take one of my really good friends to the airport and go pick her up, and unfortunately her flight was delayed, so I had to get lost in Dallas for a couple hours and do nothing in a coffee shop, and then her luggage got lost, so I was stuck at the airport, and then we got caught in traffic, and the whole thing must have taken at least 6 or 7 hours. And that was the moment when I said there has to be a better way. And for mental health crisis training, I think that would be a wonderful thing for us to focus on, so we can really just care for people when they need it the most. So I would love your vote next Tuesday and next Wednesday for external vice president. Thank you, God bless, and sic 'em Bears.
Thank you, everyone. This has been the EVP debate hosted by the Baylor Lariat. Voting information will be in the video description, as well as hopefully the links to some of the candidates' information. And with that, that's all.